us on. I really appreciate it. Let's get started with another edition of the Yamhill Leadership Roundtable. I apologize, my father-in-law is mowing in the background, so you can maybe see him. Oh, no. Okay, well, I'll get started with introductions. We've got Mayor Beth Wojtowski from the city of Dayton. We've got me, Commissioner Cooley from Yamhill County. We have Representative David Gomberg. We've got Mayor Mike Cape from Amity. We got Fritz Graham from Senator Wyden's office. We got Shannon Buckmaster from Chehalem Valley Chamber of Commerce. We've got Stacy Jochimson from Senator Jeff Merkley's office. We've got Commissioner Rick Olson from Rick Olson's office. We've got Mayor Cooley from the city of Sheridan. We've got Scott Cooper from McMinnville Economic Development Partnership. And then we have, I believe that Tyler Jansen is from Representative Gomberg's office. And we have Commissioner Mary Starrett as our phone number. Thank you, everybody, and thank you for your patience. And I'm wondering if, in a departure from tradition, although, hold on, Representative Gomberg, do you have an e-board meeting you need to be at?
Not for another hour and a half, thank you.
Okay, I just want to make sure. Well, then I would love to have an update from our federal partners here on the call as a starting point to get us kicked off. Fritz or Stacy, Fritz has got it going on. What can you tell us from the Senate?
Well, the Senate passed 2 days ago the House bill to add flexibility to the PPP and EIDL, and they and one of the problems is that if a county hasn't opened up yet, and the deadline can show up before they're able to hire people back in order to go back to business. So it was an 8-week period in the original bill, and it was extended to 24 weeks or until the end of the year, whichever comes first. 2 businesses would have as long as 5 years instead of 2 years to repay any money owed them, and that's for that, like the EIDL grant or EIDL loan was at a 3.245%. It's giving them more time, and then in the original bill, 75% of the loan had to be for payroll, and they changed it to 60%, which again, what we heard around the state was, well, if we open up, we're going to need more money for PPE, among other things. And so it just gives them more flexibility. Stacey?
Well, Fritz stole my update, so I don't really have it.
There's $130 billion left in PPP funds. So we're trying to get that out for people to they can still apply. In the bill, though, somebody held up the bill and they wanted some assurances, and they got an assurance that the application date, though, for it is remains at June 30th. So you have to apply before June 30th. Everything else is extended, but not the deadline.
Fritz or Stacy, I understand bipartisanly that bill was actually signed into law by the president this morning.
I hadn't heard that, but that sounded like what the plan was. So
okay, yeah, I understand it was signed in.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I hadn't heard it either.
Any other questions for Fritz or Stacy? Shannon.
I have a question then. So we were able to keep new permissions for 501c6 organizations to apply for PPP funding through this most recent legislative process, correct? So that would mean that any of our chambers of commerce got an MEDP, SEDCOR, our downtown coalitions, our travel organizations, we should all be able to apply for those loans. Do you know when that becomes effective?
I couldn't hear the first part of what you said there.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's more clear.
Oh, okay. My apologies. So I'm just following up course, tracking 501c6 organizations having access to PPP funding. So with that new permission included in this act of legislation, how soon would our organizations be able to apply for PPP funding? And of course, that's chambers, economic development partners, MEDP, SEDCOR, DMOs, travel organizations. All of us are waiting, downtown coalitions.
Good question, and I didn't see, so I hadn't, the information that I got about the bill, I did not see that that was part of it. So let me.
I'm sorry, I thought that it wasn't, and then I asked that it, and brought up that concern, and I was told that it was able to be, it was put back in, and so now you're saying it's not in there anymore?
I didn't see that, but I can.
Yeah.
Joya's shaking her head. Okay.
It was in the House stimulus bill that was passed last week.
Oh, the HEROES Act? Yeah.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
it was
okay.
not. There's no money in this, and there's nothing in this except for those extensions.
Yeah,
Okay.
this isn't the fourth package. This isn't the HEROES package. This was something that had come out of the House as just the PPP flexibility.
Mhm.
I don't know how this is going to impact the fourth package, and what that's going to look like. We still are pushing for that, but I'm not sure what that means politically.
My understanding was that the Senate wanted to take pieces and work on only pieces at a time, correct me if I'm wrong, and that that's why they didn't pass the whole HEROES Act. They only passed, they're taking it piece by piece. And I can't tell you where I read that, but correct me if I'm wrong. And that's why that is not in there.
Thank you for the clarification.
So once it comes to the Senate side, well, it's on the Senate side, but once they take it up, which they've not yet, then it would be addressed. But we don't have any guidance or any timing on when it will be taken up. And I know that the piecemeal part is this was one of the most pressing things that the House and Senate was hearing about, and so they did pull this one out because it was in the HEROES Act also. But I don't know how much more piecemeal there's going to be until we actually get to the big piece.
And I've started to let folks know who have expressed concern to me about the PPP and the repayment period. So hopefully folks on the call can also let people know, because I know that there are at least some businesses who stepped away and said, I'm not going to apply for PPP. I just don't know whether I'm going to be able to do this. So since there is money and flexibility, let people know. I know that Shannon and Joya are on it, but. Any other thoughts, or Fritz or Stacy, do you have anything else that you'd like to add to that?
I do just want to say we've gotten a number of questions from chambers regarding idle and some things going on, and we're working on putting together like a long list of questions for SBA. So if you have a specific question for SBA regarding idle or PPP, let us know as soon as possible, because we're going to push out to a couple of different key folks to try to get answers to specific questions. So just email me.
Great. Other comments and questions? Thank you. For Stacy or Fritz? All right. Thank you. I would love to go on then to Representative Gomberg. Hello, Representative Gomberg again. What can you tell people on the call and in the community?
Well, goodness, it's Friday afternoon. Thanks everybody for being with us or for listening in. As you mentioned, we have an emergency board meeting this afternoon. We will be reviewing a series of proposals to spend more of the money that Senator Wyden and Senator Merkley and our congressional delegation have gotten to us. $320 million that is intended to be dispersed for projects including housing supports and rent assistance. It will go for support for small businesses, for domestic and sexual violence, for, well, not for it, but against sexual and domestic violence, that it would be used to support people helping to pay their utility bills and their telephone costs. So there are a lot of proposals, 18 different items that are on the list for review this afternoon. I think it'll be a provocative conversation because there is some concern to ensure that those dollars equitably reach all parts of Oregon, rather than being dispersed primarily on a per capita basis. And in my district, I have counties where the unemployment rate is over 26% now. And yet if the money is dispersed on a per capita basis, then most of it will be going other places. So we will have that conversation this afternoon. I expect it to be a long and lively meeting. Two tidbits that I'll share with you that may be of particular interest to those listening in. First of all, I know Mayor Cooley is very involved with some campgrounds. And of course, we have come out with some new rules that are going to prohibit overnight use of the campgrounds and have some effect also on their ability to provide food service on site. So that is an evolving conversation. Another piece of news that came out from the governor is as you move into phase 2, lifting of the curfews on restaurants so that you can continue to serve food and beverages, not until 10 o'clock, but until midnight. So downtown McMinnville could prove much more lively, particularly if you close it down to traffic and allow a service on the street side. Those are two changes that are underway. Congratulations, Yamhill County, moving into phase 2. Neighboring Tillamook County has moved into phase 2. Lincoln County is locked in presently to phase 1 with an unfortunate surge in positives in Lincoln County, possibly driven by the number of visitors coming into the county from outside the area, but they have experienced a doubling of positives in the last week. So different experiences in different parts of the state, but trying to make sure that there are resources available for everybody as needed as we continue to move forward. That's a brief update from where I sit, and I'll be going to that e-board meeting in about another hour.
All right. Thank you, Representative, and thank you for being on the e-board, and thank you for being here. And I really appreciated seeing your newsletter and the comments about George Floyd's death. Well spoken. Thank you. And yes, forgive me for forgetting that Yamhill County will be in phase 2 as of tomorrow. So it's funny how it feels a little bit anticlimactic. The entering phase 1 felt like such a big thing, and phase 2, it's it's a little bit more muted. And I think we have a little bit more of an understanding of what that means for us, especially with case counts. So yeah, it feels more ambivalent in some ways. Do we have questions for Representative Gomberg besides Mayor Cape maybe asking about money for water? But it looks like Mayor Cooley would like to join us first. Mayor Cooley, what do you have to say?
So thank you for the information about camping. I did just receive an outdoor recreation phase 1 clarifications and phase 2 update number 2, but it appears like this is from Washington State because it references Governor Inslee's stay home and stay healthy order. So I had a question about whether or not they possibly sent out the wrong document.
Well, goodness, I haven't seen that, and I don't know if you received the right document or the wrong document, but I'd be happy to follow up on that. My Chief of Staff, Tyler Jansen, is on the phone. Tyler, do you have any insights on that?
Hey, can I get the question one more time, please?
There was just a circulation of some information about campgrounds, but Mayor Cooley was concerned that maybe it was a Washington document rather than an Oregon document. Did I get that right, Mayor?
Yes, that's correct. It's the document that's labeled Outdoor Recreation Phase 1 Clarifications and Phase 2 Update number 2. But under the safety and health requirements on the first page, it references as outlined in Governor Jay Inslee's Stay Home and Stay Healthy proclamation. So I questioned whether it was Oregon's document or if this is Washington's document.
Well, it sounds to me like a Washington document, but let me do some legwork and I'll get back to you momentarily.
I'm trying to verify who actually sent this out, but I'm kind of going back and forth between different things here. So
That's pretty great.
Mayor, if you're able to email that to our office, what you received, we can get you a clear answer. Is that possible?
Yeah, that is.
All right, very good.
Hey, thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other questions for Representative Gomberg or comments? E-board, you know, folks? All right, Mayor Cape.
Yeah, I'm sure. I was excited to hear on the LOC conference call earlier today that their LOC and AOC, I think it's AOC, right? Association of Oregon Counties, has been working together with a group of legislators on how to utilize that $350 million of funds. And they have come together on a consensus of a proposal to move forward on. Of that would guarantee cities smaller than, I think it was 750, with a population of smaller than 750 would receive, I believe it was $25,000, and greater than 750 population would receive a payment of $50,000. And that those funds would be eligible for all Treasury approved expenses, including water and wastewater utility billing. So I am very excited to hear that. Of course, that still has to move forward with approval, and I'm not sure what that next step is. I'm not sure what they didn't have a timeline of when that would move forward, and when cities might receive that funding. Yeah, but I was able to ask that question, and so they did answer that and say yes, that was a part of that package. So I'm excited about that. I would encourage all legislators who do follow along on this call to please look into that. Obviously, I haven't had a chance to read it, so I don't know what else is in that package, but certainly that would be a big point to support the citizens of Amity, and I'm sure other citizens across the state. I know the mayor of Toledo was on that call as well, and he expressed concern that it wasn't enough to help the severely economically depressed cities that are greatly affected on the coastal community. But at least it's a start, and there's still funds available that they hadn't made plans for yet out of that $350 million. So there's still work to be done, but I thought that was at least a great starting point. If Amity could get that $50,000, that would go a long ways in addressing most all of our financial issues, at least right now. You know, we can't tell what the tax income is going to look like moving forward, but at least for right now, that would address almost all of our problems financially. So I don't know if Representative Gomberg has any comments on that, if he's heard anything. But
well, there's some encouraging news evolving there. First of all, Mayor Cross he needs some good news right now, because the big mill in Toledo is laying off employees again because of a downturn in demand for their products. So his major economic driver in that small community is struggling. But what you're talking about, Mayor Cape, is that at the last e-board meeting, we allocated money for local government and tribes. And one of those buckets, if I could use that rough term, was a $200 million allocation. And it was first going to be used for healthcare reimbursements. And of the $200 million, about $50 million was allocated out to reimburse cities and counties for money they had spent on healthcare. That left $150 million over, and you're absolutely correct that the Association of Counties and the Association of Cities, meeting together with 2 senators and 2 representatives, has been working up a plan on how to disperse that money. I will tell you that I am concerned that their deliberations may take too long. We have needs right now, and we need to get that money out right now. And if the application process is delayed until July, that may be too late for a lot of the needs that are being considered. So I'm hopeful that they're going to hammer out their proposal very quickly so that people can start applying for these dollars very quickly. 150 million on the plate right now, and although the major pot is being diminished, there was $500 million in the reserves. We're looking at taking 300 million out of it today. That still leaves about 200 million over that could be used for causes like the ones that you're articulating.
Great, thank you very much. Thank you, Mayor Kate, for advocating, and thank you, Representative Gomberg, for explaining that. Appreciate it. Other thoughts, questions, comments for Representative Gomberg? Okay, great. Well, let's go to mayors then, just because I can't follow a routine. Mayor Cooley, what would you like to tell people here on the call and in the community at large?
So one thing that I've checked on through Jody Christensen's office is since we're in phase 2 now, if there's any changes to our playground restrictions, and she is checking on that. So that's just something I'm looking into, because it sure would be nice to get that back open so that our youth can have something to do. But so that's all I'd like to share at this time, is that I'm kind of checking on that.
Okay, great, thank you. And as far as I understand, play structures are still at the moment closed during phase 2. But at least, and Fritz and Stacy have been on calls with me where this was pushed and pushed and pushed. And the suggestion from the governor's office was, if you have a playground and you have a community that really, really wants it activated and reopened, that the governor's office needs to see a plan for that. A way for your community to take care of the playground in a way that means that it'll be clean and safe for all users. So, Fritz, is that what you remember hearing? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it would be really hard, it sounded like, to disinfect the playground between users and keep people separate. Right. That's what I heard.
Yeah. And then along those lines, though, pools and splash pads and like water park kind of features are open in phase 2, and I'm pretty sure that Sheridan doesn't have a water park, but the city of McMinnville does at Discovery Meadows, and they can open that up. So everybody's going to rush there. But I will keep you posted, because what was made clear to us on that same call was that the guidance will continue to come out as they address things in phase 2. So we're not going to be static in phase 2. Okay, thank you, Mayor. Mayor Cape, what would you like to tell people besides go Beavers?
Always go Beavers. Yeah, I think my big thing, and you already shared that, I was really excited to hear some movement in that direction. It's not the end, certainly as Representative Gomberg said. They've been working on it. My understanding was a little over a week to come to that small work group, to come to that consensus and to move a plan forward. And I agree with the representative's concerns. We need to get some of those funds to people sooner rather than later. And I know in Amity, we are starting to ask that question as we look at things opening up. When do we ease back on those restrictions and start looking at, in particular for us, the water utilities, and when do we have to start looking at enforcing those shutoffs for non-payment? And we don't have a date set yet, but we are looking at that. We know that's going to be coming soon. And so I agree with the representative in that regard, that if these funds if this plan is good and does move forward, then I would hope that we can move it forward quickly so that we can get those things in place to get the assistance to the people that need it. So I think that's the main thing that I have to share today. I just this week, as we and maybe it's that we're getting to that phase 2, and much of the state is opening up phase 2. You know, I realize phase 3 is probably still quite a ways away, but there's a sense that the federal government is starting to slow down on discussions of, you know, further financial assistance and what that might look like. And it starts to feel like, to me, that we're getting the sight of the end of the tunnel, I guess, when it comes to talking about the financial assistance from the state and federal government. And so what is that going to look like, and how soon can we get what assistance there is to the people in our town that really that need it? And so I know we're not close to we're not at the end of that discussion yet. There's the state of emergency is going to continue, and things are we're not done yet, but it just feels like we're starting to see the end. And so that's kind of where I'm at. And if we're starting to see the end, I want to do what I can to continue to advocate to get the help to the people of Amity. So.
All right, great. Thank you very much, Mayor. Mayor Wojtowski, what would you like to tell people? But I also would really like to hear about Dayton High School graduation plans, because I keep seeing little bits of it.
Our graduation is tomorrow. So we are doing our drive-in ceremony where the kids are coming in their cars with their parents, listening to speeches, and hearing from their commencement speaker that they selected. Then they will leave the high school property and go to their home bases, which are areas in the right-of-way at the community in front of homes that said that they would take a family of graduates. We're expecting rain. So that's a little bit of a bummer, but our community has done really well in stepping up. Lots of folks have volunteered their pop-up tents and awnings so that families have a little bit of cover. And both the families and the kids have said, rain or shine, don't take our parade. So we're going rain or shine. And so we will be delivering diplomas to those home bases so that the kiddos can be there. They're not kiddos now, so that the young adults can be there with their families to see them receive those awards. So that's what our graduation looks like tomorrow. We expect it to run actually for a few hours for that parade because we are going to each home and talking about their post-high plans, giving them their diplomas, a rose and a biodegradable balloon to release in lieu of throwing their caps. And so it will take some time. So we'll have some street closures people should be aware of. That's what our graduation looks like. And then my job will become a little bit more relaxed after we get through that point. Oh, actually, one really, really awesome thing. Our principal tasked our senior team to try to get all of our graduates to graduation to help support them in earning their diplomas. And yesterday, the last 2 finished. And so we were at 100% graduation rate again this year. So that's a big accomplishment. And it was like kind of a tearful thing when I got the last project emailed and I was frantically trying to run through the grading and I was like, it's passing. And so we're very, very happy to have 100% graduation rate again and hoping for that to continue. And in full honesty, full transparency, I was not sure a month ago that we were going to get there. We had some kids really struggling with distance learning, struggling in their homes, credit deficiencies, kids with internet access barriers and all kinds of stuff. And we really had to push and pull and accommodate and really wrap around our kids to get them there. So I'm really happy that we did though. For the city, we're going to continue our urban program of utility rebates for supporting our downtown businesses through the month of June. We have had, I think, nearly 20% of our households benefit from the program, and our businesses also have been incredibly supportive of that and feel like it's made a difference in who's coming in to patronize them. So that's really great. I know of, several other cities ended up modeling similar programs, and a few of those are starting to end. And we are, like I said, just taking that through this month. We are continuing, however, to suspend shutoffs and late fees on utilities into the foreseeable future. We don't have an end date for that. We really want to wait until employment becomes closer to normalized before we have expectations of regular utility payments, and we want to make sure that we're being as gracious as we can with that. We do have, to Mayor Cape's point, I think we have about 8% of our households, I think it's 8%, I don't have numbers in front of me, that are more than a month behind. And so, that's obviously a concern. We wouldn't want to have 10% of our city having to suffer a shut off shortly. So we definitely are happy and hopeful that we'll get some relief funds to help our most vulnerable and most impacted residents get their accounts caught up. And without the typical additional fees of penalties and reconnects and things like that. Yeah, my community, like many, and like Mayor Cooley especially pointed out, is really anxious and hopeful to see parks and outdoor facilities and courts used and available. I do want to kind of bring up one question that maybe Representative Gomberg can clarify, or maybe other folks who've been part of other conversations, and that is use of school facilities for the allowable recreational sports. And I've had some communications with Leah in the governor's office, but there seems to be some inconsistency. And so I do want to kind of bring that up. And what I see is the OSAA is telling schools you can use your facilities for anything you like after your last day of school, so long as you're following the guidelines. The governor's office has said that that's not the case, that the period of closure is through June 30th. And so I'm hoping that at some point there's a little bit of a more clear communication so that our athletic coaches know if they're allowed to hold workouts. A lot of them are doing so off campus. But of course, there's questions of liability and all kinds of issues coming up with that. So that would be really good to get clarification on. The other point of clarification I would love to hear based on other conversations is the venue cap of 250. I was asked by a community member if we could then have an event in the park that would allow 250 people to attend. My answer in reading the advice was no, that's for specific things. But then he had some evidence of other events in other cities that certainly are over the 250. And so it would be great to just have a little bit of clarity about who's capped at 100 outdoors and who's capped at 250. And for what types of events. So that's kind of what I have today.
Great, thank you very much, Mayor. Representative Gomberg, there was something that was directed at you, but I also want to provide Shannon Buckmaster an opportunity to add to that, specifically with the event.
Yes, so Mayor Wojtowski, I had the same question yesterday. We had a community organization contact me about setting up a 4th of July outdoor event. So I spoke with Jody Christensen. She said that the events, large gatherings, are specifically designed for existing facilities. So either a brick and mortar structure that includes an outdoor space or an event center that already goes toward these spaces. And of course, part of the motive behind the phase 2 relaxed restrictions was to support communities of faith getting together as well. So Jody's initial answer was no, it does not include transient events. Those would still be considered a large group gathering, which are not permitted until phase 3. And I'm expecting a final answer from her today. But a lot of communities have this question. It's summer, we have holidays, we want to celebrate, but it is only for existing organizations, facilities, and structures, not for any other planned event.
And
yeah, that was how I read it also, but I got pushback from that interpretation. So I just kind of wanted to hear how others were reading it and other conversations you'd had. So if your reading is the same and Jody Christensen has supported that, that makes me feel a little bit just more confident in that. So that is very helpful. Thank you.
That was not my initial reading. I was really confused, which is why I called Jody, and she's confirming it directly with her director at the governor's office. But that looks like the direction we're going.
Thank you.
And if commissioners want to weigh in based upon the AOC call this morning, feel free to add to that.
Hi, this is Mary Starrett, and thank you everybody for being here. I think it was kind of complicated as usual. It's sort of a challenge to parse some of these words, but currently what they said was that no playgrounds were open, but they're working through that today, so that could change. And what else did I call out? I think that it was just a little confusing about when we're talking about the 50, 100, and 250, what exactly does that mean? So the explanation was, again, the 50 is personal services, indoor sports, things like that. 100 would be outdoors. 250 included the venues, weddings, concerts, restaurants, and would include churches. And then there was another specific mention of video lottery machines where plexiglass could be employed in between machines to make that an option again. And then the question about masks came up, which is interesting because somebody said earlier on in relation to a question about this, that the World Health Organization gives a thumbs down on masks, CDC gives a thumbs up, so Oregon Health Authority has chosen the thumbs up approach. But in terms of employers requiring masks, there are those who have health concerns and concerns about wearing a mask. So they're being asked to submit documentation to that effect. But then it was recommended that the employers would seek legal advice and go through HR channels to try to vet that. One of the other mentions was, well, you can have an employee not wearing a mask who has that documentation, but make sure, I guess, that there aren't too many of them doing that, because so it really is not, it's not hard and fast. There's a lot of gray areas here. The travel component I found interesting. The whole tourism, do we encourage tourism, and what does that look like? So there, I guess, working through that one as well. And then the other question I brought up was about the enforcement during the protests, which turned into riots in Portland, Salem, and a number of other cities. And Leah Horner said, I don't have a great answer for this. We're trying to balance the rights of protesters. And then the question was about, would there be contact tracing? Should there be an outbreak? And the answer was, well, apparently, that's just not something that would even be possible to do. So I think there are those issues. And what else? So as far as travel, since they're talking about, and maybe whoever else, Commissioner Cooley, if you wanted to maybe clarify this one, because as far as travel goes, if you're in a Phase 2 county, can you travel to a Phase 2 county, or are you allowed to travel to a Phase 1 county, or is that not advised? And again, it gets really confusing.
Yes, it's true. I actually need to read the guidance. Apparently, it came out while we were on the AOC call. So, but Representative Gomberg, you were hoping to, I think, address Mayor Wojtowski's question about the OSSA Governor's Office and recreational sports, or attempt.
Oh, thank you so much. Actually, I was hoping to defer that to Representative Post. Oh, he's not here. Honestly, Mayor, I don't know the answer to your question. I can try and get a little bit more information. I think the main point here is that that there is some ambiguities in these rules. There is some differences of interpretation of what's going on, and there is also some evolution, as exemplified when I mentioned that that restaurants were being asked to close at 10, and now they're able to stay open until midnight. So I think your best response is to verify with the governor's office and then watch for possible changes. That's not much of an answer, but it's the only one I've got for you this afternoon.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much what I would have said too. But deferring. And then also just reading the guidance over and over again, I feel like, and then having somebody else look at it has also been really helpful to me. Like, is this really what this says? And then 10 minutes later, yeah, that's what that says. So that's not very helpful, but.
Well, and on the recreational sports issue, so I think the guidance is relatively clear. the governor's office supported that. The challenge is that we do have two agencies that are saying something different than the governor's office. And one of them is doing it very publicly in pre-recorded videos that is being sent to school staff that is not congruent with the governor's office advice. So that's, and again, most of the school districts are not calling the governor's office like I am, and are not having those conversations. So then now there's concern that, our district will be kind of behind because other districts are moving forward with workouts that ours is not, and that kind of thing. So it's hard when we're getting varied answers between agencies.
Agreed. Okay, thank you. I think we've got, Mayor Cape has a comment. Yeah, sorry.
Don't worry too much, Mayor. Salem is having the exact same questions and the exact same confusions. So you guys are in the same boat as we are. So
I have to admit, I thought you were going to say, don't worry about falling behind and make some sort of rivalry joke.
Well, I'm sure the kids wanted a speaker of grand stature and intelligence, and that, of course, would be the mayor of Amity. But,
I did notice that they did not ask you to speak at Dayton High for the graduates. I acknowledge that. Okay, great, thank you. I have actually asked Shannon Buckmaster if she can do both a Newburgh City update and as well as a chamber update. So we go to Shannon Buckmaster next.
So I actually decided to focus on positive updates. I have happy news to share. One of the biggest things is that we did have a socially distanced, safe for our community, and totally peaceful, nonviolent protest at the Cultural Center earlier this week, promoting concepts of healing, understanding, and cooperation around Black Lives Matter and in honor of George Floyd. So we've also had really thoughtful statements from our chief of police, our mayor, our superintendent. So I'm proud of how our community is addressing this. We're not ignoring it, we're approaching it. And for those who really felt they needed to express in a physical capacity, they were very thoughtful as they did so. So celebrating my community a little bit there, actually a lot. And then we just heard Travel Oregon has announced their emergency grant winners, and we had 4 people from Newburgh, or 4 organizations from Newburgh, who are receiving Travel Oregon grant money. Taste Newburgh, which is our DMO, our destination marketing organization, received a great grant. And then also Dream Givers Inn, La Poille, a Wine Valley Inn, and Travel Lodge Suites. So we have some economic relief for our tourism partners there. We are in the middle of day 2 right now of a 3-day-long outdoor graduation ceremony for Catalyst High Schools and Newburgh High School. So Catalyst is our alternative high school within Newburgh. They had their separate ceremony last night outside the parking lot. And then we have 2 days of Newburgh High School graduation today, and it's literally set up as a drive-through on the south part of campus, where there are, each family, I believe, is permitted 2 vehicles. I'm seeing some of the pictures come through on social media, on Instagram. Our graduates and their families feel honored. They feel safe. They feel respected. They feel celebrated. The staff is having a great time with it as well. So we're celebrating the class of 2020 locally. Our farmers market opened several weeks ago, and I'd heard that even as they are doing a great job managing social distance guidelines, limiting people are checking in, they're being sanitized on the way out and the way into and the way out of the market. It's actually been their most successful farmers market in several years. So maybe it takes a little bit of pressure or disruption for us to figure out our very best ways to come together as a community. So I'm really proud of that. They do need volunteers. So if you're in the Newburgh-Dundee area, set up, sterilization, managing the crowd, and then clean up, tear down Wednesday afternoons. So I think it's like noon-ish to maybe 9-ish. And each volunteer only has a 1-hour shift. Everybody is being very safe. So a plea on behalf of the Downtown Coalition and the Newburgh's Farmers Market, please consider volunteering for the event. And then finally, we have some business as usual, and it's kind of nice to think that we're still planning for a productive, healthy community. We're moving forward with tax increment financing plans or urban renewal plans for the city of Newburgh, which includes economic development zones in the downtown area and possibly into the waterfront area. And so the city of Newburgh has produced informational videos that will start coming out very soon to explain that process to our community. And then we're also moving forward with the Newburgh School Bond for a November ballot. So we've got a lot of frustrating things, a lot of confusing things, but I just focused on a very bright, rosy snapshot of our community. Do you have any questions?
Yes, any questions, preferably really hard questions.
It's fair. Complicated 4-paragraph questions.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you very much, Shannon. It is really good to have good news.
I'm feeling kind of cold out on that.
I shake my head slowly.
No, I'm totally laughing at myself, and I'm really good at that. I find, yes. So it was fingers pointed at me.
Yeah, totally. I actually tried on the Chehalem Valley Chamber Board of Directors call to have like hard questions, and all I could think of was, thanks. And it wasn't even a question, just so you know. Okay, great. Let's go to the city of McMinnville folks who are on the call. Joya, I saw in the paper today that the 3rd Street proposal is now public, but feel free to talk about anything else to the community at large.
Yeah, so the city is, well, excuse me, MDA and the city, I mean, it was not just one organization that, it came out of MDA, our Downtown Association, to close 3rd Street from Friday at 5 until Sunday at midnight or something like that. So businesses, restaurants can open and go out into the street. And what's really awesome is that phase 2 allows restaurants to do that. So it's all sort of come together and worked out really, really well, not just for our community, but for, you know, restaurants across the state, truly. So that's exciting. I don't know when officially they're going to be doing it, but the restaurants and the businesses on 3rd Street are very excited about it. One business basically said, I didn't realize how much we depended on tourism here. So it's good that they're thinking how that all works. Shannon had mentioned the demonstrations in Newburgh. We had 2 this week as well. And also our city manager, and they were all peaceful, nothing, one of them was a group of high school students, and they did a great job, presenting our community, or representing our community rather, so there were no problems with that. And then the city manager, police chief posted something on Facebook regarding, just the police brutality issues and things like that, and the city manager also released a video. So, those are out there as well. Our high school students, like in Newburgh, are graduating today, and they're doing their little drive arounds the town. So what they do is they go to the elementary school that they attended, and they usually go and meet with their teachers, but they're driving around the neighborhoods. And so we're all encouraged to go out there at, I think, at 5 o'clock this afternoon and support those graduates, because they've come a long way. And they still have a road to go, but they're our future leaders, so we want to support them. Our chamber office is opening on Monday. It's by appointment only, but there will be staff coming back to our office, and so hopefully we'll have some form of normalcy moving forward. First Federal had their groundbreaking ceremony today, and I was invited to go, and it was really fun to be there, and it was my first true groundbreaking where I actually got to throw a shovel of dirt, so that was fun. And that building will be completed by fall of 2021. So we're excited to see how it's all going to work out. And I think it's going to be a great addition. Well, I know it's going to be a great addition to our community. It's going to be a beautiful building and a great statement to the entranceway to our downtown area. And the last thing, I was invited by the News Register to write a Viewpoints article. And so it's going to show up next week if you're interested in seeing what I have to say. I wrote an article on hope and the importance of hope, and I'm really proud of it. And I'm so honored that I actually was asked to do something for the paper. in that regard. So, and please be kind to me because it really is my very first really big article that I've written. So be nice to me. Anyway, thank you so much.
Wonderful. Thank you, Joya. And just a word of advice. Don't look at the comments.
Yes, I keep telling myself that. Don't look at the comments because there will be people who will say this is so beautiful, and then there are others who will say this is horrible. So whatever.
Totally.
It's all good. At the end of the day, I poured my heart out. If you don't like it, oh well. Nothing I can do about it, right? Anyway, thank you. Thanks for the advice.
Thank you very much, Joya. I want to make sure that we get to commissioners, but I've got Scott Cooper from McMinnville Economic Development Partnership. What would you like to tell people, or what can you add to Joya's comments?
Well, I'll certainly keep it on the positive. It's great to hear those things in Newburgh and certainly with the Chamber in McMinnville as well. Just really quick, economic development projects continue to move forward. Site selectors, companies outside of the state looking within the state, within the region. Local expansions continue to look for opportunities as well. So those are great things to see and good news for us to have. Those are projects that are time-wise will take 6 to 18 months, maybe some even longer. But they're good to see that the motion is still there, and that's a positive thing for economic development in our area. That's it. Thank you very much, Commissioner.
Great. Thank you very much. All right, Commissioner Olson, what would you like to tell people both on the call and in the community?
Well, a couple of interesting things, Casey, that first of all, I'd like to comment on Joya's comment about making people mad and your comment. With over 40 years in government, I've always told people this: if they talk good about you, you're okay. If they talk bad about you, you're okay. It's when they don't talk about you at all, you're not getting anything done. So that's the way I've always looked at it in my political career. It's when they don't talk about anything you do, that's when you're in trouble. But that being said, closing 3rd Street, I'm glad to see the city did that. I've had some comments from some restaurants downtown that say, well, now we can go serve, we can expand our service outside. And I asked them, well, have you filled out your OLCC expansion permit? And they said, what's an OLCC expansion permit? Well, as we all know, if you want to change your normal areas of where you have your service, alcohol service, you actually have to get a permit through OLCC. We have one business downtown that turned in their report, I think it was like May 16th, their expansion report, and they still haven't heard anything back from OLCC. So I think some businesses and restaurants see that they want to do it, they'd love to do it, but again, they see it's the state bureaucracy, and we turn in a permit, and 4 weeks later we may hear back instead of being, we'll turn in the permit, we'll do it, then you can look at it. So I think that's a little bit of an issue, but I think the city council and the city made a good choice of closing down 3rd Street. A little thing about video lottery that I'm hearing from a lot of establishments have video lottery is that, look, under phase 1 and phase 2, you have to have the 6-foot clearance. And if you don't have the 6-foot clearance, every other video lottery machine has to be shut down. So you have that 6, and then when somebody comes to use it, it's got to be cleaned and powered up. Well, it turns out that the reason there isn't 6 feet, a lot of people have the space and they're waiting. They've been wired, they're waiting, but video lottery contractors are the only ones that can move the lottery machines, and they're waiting sometimes 3 to 5 to 6 weeks to get those machines relocated. So they say that, hey, great, we can use all of our lottery machines, but since video lottery's got to move them, they're at their whims and that's affected their revenue dollars through video lottery. The other thing, that I'd like to talk about a little bit is the court. This morning we had our court security meeting in our courthouse this morning, and it was kind of strange because for any county that's currently in phase 2, or when they do go to phase 2, that they've gotten permission from the Department of Justice and the head judge to go back to being able to run a full docket of bench cases, trial cases, jury trials, and everything. Well, when we discussed this morning, the situation that puts is the judges can dictate that a mask be worn inside the courtroom and outside the courtroom. But as they start bringing up the jury selection panels for interviews, they may be bringing in an additional 40 to 50 people that they need to interview for the select the jury from. And what do we do with those people? How does the county address when they come up? Because it'll be a big influx of additional people into the courthouse. How do we adjust? Because the one security machine won't do it. They have to be scanned. They have to be checked. They have to get their temperature done and everything. Well, how do we do that? Because our courthouse is multifunctioning. And so we have a lot of other functions in the courthouse beside the courts. But if the judges are talking about starting next Wednesday, potentially starting all the jury trials and everything again. And of course, the courtrooms have to have the distancing in them. But it brought up some really good things for the county about, well, wait a minute, you're going to put this influx into our courthouse. How are we going to get ready for that by next Wednesday? So that was an issue that came up. And I'm not so sure we had any really good answers. Let's see if I have anything else. No, but I think the only thing I have is most restaurants that I've talked to in downtown McMinnville and a couple in Newburgh, one in Yamhill, is that all of those were gearing up for phase 2. So for instance, several in McMinnville are set up. They've already in their booth seating, they've already put the panels between their booths so they could use all booths. And we have several that will go live with it tomorrow. But the problem is trying to get the people back to work fast enough to fill in all the shifts. It's like going to the 12 o'clock curfew or the 12 o'clock mandate now. Well, that takes different staffing models. So they have to get, even though they can go, now they have to get all the staff in there to do it. So, and I think that's all I have.
Great. Thank you very much, Commissioner Olson. Anything else? I think we've got to everybody on the call. Okay, any last comments? I just wanted to note that with all of both the protests and the national coverage of George Floyd's death, it's really clear that in every situation we have systemic racism like in play. And so I just want to encourage folks on the call and in the community to think about every situation that we're in is how this would look from another's perspective who's not you, and what can we do to reduce both the disparity in opportunity and the disparity in outcomes. I think it's an important thing for us to be addressing and thinking about, and also having more voices at the table. So it's something I put on myself and I'm working on, but as well I would encourage you all to work on. And I know actually Shannon just dropped off the call, but she was working on a program to have a Latinx kind of business outreach component. And I know that Joya has her own program as well. So something for all of us to be working on and thinking about for sure. I did want to note that while we are entering phase 2 tomorrow in Yamhill County, we have experienced and seen further case numbers throughout this last week, including we had 5 new cases yesterday. So we maintain a fairly low positivity rate, both Oregon compared to the nation and Yamhill County versus Oregon. But it's something that we're going to need to look at. And it looks like some of the most recent cases are associated with social gatherings. So if we want to keep our case counts low, and if we want to keep hospitalizations low, we definitely need to be essentially, I said it in the paper, but it's ever vigilant, right? This is a novel coronavirus. We're still learning about how it's transmitted, how people get it from each other. And so as we open up more, I just want to encourage everybody on the call and in the community to consider the virus is real. It's still being transmitted. It's still in our community. And we all have a part to play in it. So thanks for hearing me out. Sometimes I feel by the time we're done with this call, I just need to get off, but those were important things for me to let you all know. So any last thoughts? And I want to say, Representative Gomberg, thank you for being on the e-board. We're super glad for it here on this call. And I will see everybody here tomorrow or Tuesday. Congratulations to the graduating class in Dayton and to everybody else who has graduated. So thank you very much, everybody, and we'll see you on Tuesday.